Tales of the Valiant. Which still to me sounds like a classic Marvel crossover comic. Tales of the Valiant, starring Spider-Man, and this month, The Incredible Thing. Remember those? I love those. I love the crossovers. And it totally sounds like a title of a crossover. It's also the final title of what originally was Project Black Flag, which I think most of us would have rather it have been called Project Black Flag, because that's a fucking cool name. Not to say that Tales of the Valiant isn't as cool. It's just, I don't know, Project Black Flag was like 100% cool, and Tales from the Valiant's like 80% cool. Doesn't really roll off the tongue the way Project Black Flag did. Not that Project Black Flag rolls off the tongue. That's a hard word to say. I'm mumbling because, yeah, I'm an idiot. Just as Condor DM. What's up, nerds? It's your boy. It's 9 o'clock in the morning here at Site B. It's foggy. It's rainy. It's Friday. We're talking about what we talk about every Friday, and that is the victors and villains and victims from the January OGL War. And of the many stories that came out of the January OGL War was, of course, Kobold Press announcing Project Black Flag, which was supposed to be their take on a revolutionary way to present an alternative to the evil 5th edition OGL that Wizards of the Coast was claiming they were going to be in January. Since then, of course, Wizards of the Coast has sort of, not really, kind of, but not really, sort of changed their, but not really changed their attitude and the way we perceive them, but not really. And Tales for the Valiant is out. It is available. Well, the alpha release is available. Pre-orders are available. After some initial controversy, it is looking to be the #1 possible alternative to 5th edition 2024. It could be the Pathfinder to 5e 2024, maybe, depending upon how Kobold handles it. Or it could not be. We don't know. There's some other competitors to the throne right now. It kind of just depends on how each of the contenders play out the advertising game / take advantage of what happens in 2024 with 5e, 6e 2024. So GenCon has come and gone. We know the final numbers for Tales of the Valiant, how it made Kickstarter-wise. It made over $1 million Kickstarter, but fell short of the amount of money Kelsey Dion made for Shadow Dark, which means, I guess, Shadow Dark is the winner of the OGL Wars. The alpha test for Tales for the Valiant is available. It's $10 if you want to see a preview of Tales of the Valiant. The finished product will be out next year. It's still in playtest, so that means maybe everything in the alpha test will be completely pointless. I speak from experience, having playtested all 3 iterations of the alpha test of 5th edition, and then having bought the official 5th edition when it came out. And I can tell you, because I still have it, the alpha test of D&D Next and 5th edition final product look completely different. So the alpha release of Tales from the Valiant and the final product of Tales from the Valiant could be completely different. We don't know. Now, here's an interesting number. We have the numbers from games played at GenCon. So every official sponsored game at GenCon, you had to get a ticket for. So if you went to play WRETCHED Vigilantes, that would be a ticket. If you went to play Shadow Dark, that would be a ticket. If you went to play 3rd edition D&D, that'll be a ticket. If you went to play an Adventurers League D&D game, that was a ticket. So the #1, of course, was all the D&D games. Now, they don't tell you which of those there was the #1, but of the #1 tickets of games, official games played, D&D. So every version of D&D. There could have been people playing OGL, OSRO D&D, because apparently there was a lot. Could have been people playing 3rd or 4th or 5th. But if you lump them all together, #1. #2 was Paizo. So every Paizo game that was run, all lumped together, was the #2. So I think this is kind of unfair, where, you know, you have companies that have multiple games being run under the same name. Paizo's got Pathfinder, Pathfinder 2, Starfinder 2 playtest, Pathfinder 2 remastered. All those fall under the Paizo. So, of course, they came in #2. And Wizards D&D has what, 12 different versions of games that are being played there that all fall under D&D. So of course it would be number one. You just win sheerly by examples. 12 versus 4 versus 1, 12 wins. The third most game played was Tales of the Valiant. So of all the hundreds of games that were officially being run at Gen Con, the thousands and thousands of people who played those games officially, I'm not talking like open games where just a bunch of guys sat down at a table and went, hey, let's play a game of D&D. No, these are official games. The third most popular game over the 4-day weekend of Gen Con 2023 was Tales of the Valiant. A game that doesn't exist was played more than games that do exist. Now, I'm very excited to say number 4 was Dungeon Crawl Classic because you know DCC is my favorite third-party OGL retro clone. But, you know, number 3 was Tales of the Valiant. So how do you play a game that doesn't exist? Was Kobold Press there running playtests? Or you mean that there were people there playtesting and running the alpha release? Or did you actually have several thousand people playing Tales from the Valiant? And if you did, how did you do that? Because Tales of the Valiant doesn't exist yet. All that exists is the alpha release and the playtests. So wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, Scott Steiner math, somehow the third most played game was a game that technically doesn't exist. Unless it was either A, Kobold being there running playtests, which then you would have said, though, to be fair, Tales of the Valiant playtest, or people were playing the alpha release of Tales for the Valiant, and those were officially sponsored Kobold Press playthroughs of the alpha release of Tales for the Valiant. Or you're just making shit up, which based upon these numbers, you kind of sometimes think, wow, how do you get this month numbers? That's some Scott Steiner level math there. Are you just making shit up? Anyways, what do you think about that? Meanwhile, where do we stand in Tales from the Valiant in its corner as contender for the championship of 2024 6th edition Dungeons and Dragons? Right now it is, well, it's definitely got more product out than the ORC. It's definitely in the running. I would say first place right now is Level Up 5e Advanced. Second place is Tales of the Valiant. The obvious winner out of the January OGL Manica Panic, of course, is Kelsey Dion's Shadow Dark. But for the ones that are looking to be the number one contenders for the throne of 6th edition 2024 D&D, I would say Level Up 5e is number one because it's already out. It's already done. It's got product. It's been out for a while. Tales of the Valiant, number 2. Daggerheart would be number 3, depending upon Wizards, what they do with Daggerheart. And the else would just, well, I don't know. I mean, you know, we've got the other people who said they were going to make shit and they haven't yet. But that's the news for Tales of the Valiant. What do you think about that? Are you excited about Tales for the Valiant? Do you not care about Tales for the Valiant? Do you think Tales for the Valiant will be a good alternative retro clone for the people who still want to play 5e after Wizards of the Coast kills 5e in 2024? Or will it go the way of the dodo and just be forgotten in a year? I don't know. And do you have any idea how the third most popular game at Gen Con could be a game that didn't actually exist, except, of course, for the alpha test, which means I would like more information, Gen Con, and what you mean when you say it was number 3, because it's kind of hard for a game that didn't exist to be number 3 unless you mean there were official tests of the alpha release there, which you should have said if it was. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, you know, if you're not a 5e fan, if you're not a Tales of the Valiant fan, if you don't care about the OGL wars, then obviously this news means nothing to you. But if you do care, then it's interesting to know that it was number 3. Ha ha, D&D. A game that doesn't exist rates as high as you do. Number 4 was DCC, and that's really all that matters. I'll have more news as it becomes available to us, unless I get flooded out. I'm the OGGM. If you appreciate this nonsense, let me know. If you never want to hear me talk about this ever again, let me know. What are you thinking about the Tales of the Valiant OGL ORC Shadow Dark Wars? Where are we going? What can we expect in 2024? You got any thoughts? Talk to me. Let me hear you. Yeah.